Who's the greatest leader that you encountered when you were in the Navy?
Ed Bruner.
Tell me about him.
He was my senior chief, and he pretty much just, the term was sea daddy. He just took me under his wing, and I messed up a lot when I was in because I was that age or whatever and super defiant, but he saw something in me, and every time he stood up for me, it just made me work 10 times harder for him. And if I could track him down, I would thank him for, saving my ass, because I try to get myself in self-destructive trouble all the time. And he, he'd take me aside and kind of slap me around, be like, dude, I know you're better than this. And so just him as a senior chief, taking time out of his day to give a damn about me made a huge difference.
Yeah. These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. A hot drink can become cool in two primary ways, through conduction and convection. Conduction occurs when two objects touch each other. Imagine holding a piece of ice. Before long, your fingers are cold and the ice begins to melt. That's conduction. Convection occurs when a gas or liquid moves from being different temperatures. When you heat water over a stove, the warm water moves up and the cool water moves down. That's what you're seeing when water boils, and that's convection. A stainless vacuum bottle prevents conduction from occurring by creating a void between the walls of the bottle, thermos, or cup and the outside air. It prevents convection by keeping all the liquid inside at the same temperature. That's how a Stanley product keeps your cold drink cold and your hot drink hot. And they've been doing it for 110 years. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Stanley 1913, and you can check out their new and classic line of products at stanley1913.com. Trying to cook eggs the same way you talked about it. And I have 2 eggs for breakfast every day. I eat all the whites all the way around. And then if I can get the yolk without busting it on both eggs, so that's cooking and eating, I call it a double Lyle.
Oh, nice.
And that's the start to a good day. What did you have for breakfast?
Bacon, eggs, and pancakes with the kids.
Nice. That's solid.
Mm-hmm.
Paul?
I had bacon in the air fryer, and I did the old Cowboy Kent Rollins hash brown method.
I'm unfamiliar.
So you shred up a potato, and then rinse them off really good. Rinse off your
That's critical.
hash. Yeah.
If you're shredding your own spud, you got to get the starch out of it. Otherwise, it just turns into mush.
Yeah. Which is okay sometimes.
Yeah.
On
You like mushy hash browns?
Oh, yeah, on the river I do once in a while.
All right.
Anyway, and then I take a salad spinner and just get all that moisture out of it. Take a towel and just pat it down as good as you can. Then you take some ghee and fry them up hot. A little bit of Johnny's or whatever you want. That's the best damn hash brown ever.
Huh. I like that. I've tried, I don't know how many times, to cook bacon first and then cook hash browns in bacon grease. Well, the theory's there. I've never gotten it to work out right.
Yeah. Try that ghee method, man.
Yeah. I don't think I have any ghee.
For some reason, I don't know. I guess it just turns out like the crispiest I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lyle, how do you feel about hash browns?
I can't cook worth a damn. So if they're not from the cafe, they're probably mushy.
Have you seen the ones that come in the little, looks like a little tiny milk carton? Those are a good piece of gear for backcountry stuff, or not that you have to deal with that all that often, but they don't weigh hardly anything, and all you got to do is pour boiling water into them.
All right, yeah.
And wait a few, and they're a pretty good little hash brown on the go. What's new with you fellas?
Well, I'm back to work, so that's good. Sitting around for 3 months.
Yeah. Okay. So I have never actually heard like the the play-by-play.
It's not glorious.
Of how it went down.
It's not. I don't even have a good story this time.
Yeah.
It's a simple fall, but sitting around for 3 months is something else. It's something I'd never thought I'd do again.
Yeah.
It's like, if this is what retirement is like, I'm gonna have to find something to keep me freaking busy, because
hobbies.
it was
you gotta have a
absolutely
hobby.
well. Granted, it was middle of the winter time too, but even if it hadn't been, I mean, I was still pretty immobile. So it's
Yeah.
good to be back and normal and back out in the community.
Yeah. So you broke your foot.
Broke my foot, had surgery, and yeah, I've been back for a few weeks, so everything's going good. I've learned that trying to kick snow off my foot, especially my right one where that plate is a really bad idea. I found that out the hard way.
Oh, like
Like when you're getting in your rig.
like kicking a step to knock all this snow
Bang
off.
your foot on the.
Yeah,
Oh man.
that was an oversight, to say the least.
Has the cold been affecting it?
So I went fishing with Dad down in Troy.
Yeah.
And we were out there wading. I took a temp, and it was 33 degrees and water temp. And man, usually I can last out there quite a while. But the right side of my foot where that plate is.
Yeah.
Oh, you can just feel it in there aching.
Oh
Really?
man.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have the option to get that removed later on in the year if I want. So.
I'm going to be building some fence around this little 5-acre lot, and I want to use woven wire fence so that the whole place is the dog fence, right? And I was researching woven wire because there's a bunch of different brands. It's all expensive. My God. We're looking at like $270 for a 330-foot section of just the wire. So, fences are freaking expensive. But anyways, I was looking at this Red brand, which is, what everybody says is the best brand of woven wire. And it has these little kinks in the top and bottom strand. And the reason that it has that is because it expands with heat and it contracts with cold. So they build that into it like a spring. A lot of people fence in the summertime when it's warm. If you build a tight fence in the summer and then that winter your wire shrinks, it's going to pull down your posts.
Yeah.
So smart. I don't think I would have ever thought of that. I would have just been like, wind, snow, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens.
What brought up the thinking about a fence?
I was thinking about the metal expanding and
expansion.
contracting inside his foot. If why would it ache? That's what I was
Right.
thinking about. Because it does. I know that to be true, but why would that happen? I was like, well, maybe it's shrinking.
I haven't
be.
experienced it. I got a titanium elbow.
Oh, you
and
do?
I'm assuming that it's wrapped in enough meat that it doesn't get cold enough to bother me. But I've never had it bother me with the cold.
I could just feel it in there, like radiating
Yeah.
cold, like throbbing.
Well, and there's just not a lot of coverage on your foot.
It's right
I
on
mean,
the
mine's
outside.
in the middle of my elbow. There's,
Mm-hmm.
You ever drop bombs with that thing?
Well, it's not this part. It's the inside one.
How did you end up with a titanium elbow?
I had a little dirt bike accident
Oh.
when 2004 and shattered that thing. And the odd thing is they put a big plate here, and then it was shattered in 6 places. They put a plate there to put it all back together. Well, about 8 months later, there was this weird growth, like kind of trying to grow out of the side of my elbow.
Alarming.
Yeah, and I could grab my wrist, and I could, there was some play in my arm. And from being a mechanic, I figured that wasn't right because the front, your front end's not supposed to have
Linkages
play.
loose, yeah.
So I went to an outside doctor, and the radial head wasn't actually attached to my elbow. It was just floating around in there. And it was so deformed from trying to grow to what it was supposed to grow to that it started growing out the side of my arm. So they chopped the radial head off and stuck basically a titanium doorknob on there, and it's been amazing ever since.
Huh.
But it was a mess to begin with. I couldn't do push-ups, pull-ups, or anything for a while.
What a time to be alive.
Whew, yeah.
That something like that's even possible.
Oh, that could have immobilized me for the rest of my life for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We're in a really narrow window for it, too. you don't have to dial the calendar back very far before it's like, oh, I don't know, you want to amputate it?
I was lucky I was in California.
Really?
And not in a more rural place.
Yeah.
Like, I had some experimental nerve surgery done and got feeling back in my hand. And with that, in a less sophisticated operation, it could have really messed with my life.
Did the Navy do it for you?
Yep.
Yeah. Josh had a hernia. I think he developed during either boot camp or one of his swim schools or something like that. And he had to get surgery on it. And he woke up and they'd done surgery on the wrong spot.
Get out of here.
So he had to take a marker and draw a circle around it, and they had to go back and do it again.
That's insane.
Naval medicine, boys.
Ouch.
Well, that's it, naval medicine. I go into the doctor, and I'm like, hey, this elbow's loose. It ain't hooked up. Something's wrong. And he takes a look at it, tells me it's all fine and everything. Well, come to find out, he's a dermatologist. So, yeah, from the outside, it looks great.
He was just standing duty on surgery day.
Something on the inside ain't right.
Jesus. That's such a Lyle story, too. It would happen to you, man.
Yeah, it would happen to Lyle. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
So if you're in the service, what's the best branch to be in if you have to have surgery?
I would assume the Air Force.
So would I.
Yeah, but I don't know. And then there's also a mixed bag too, right? There's some naval medical officers who are wonderful.
I bet. Yeah.
Really wonderful. And I think it depends, just on the individuals. Just like out here in the civilian world, you found a doctor that you really like, and you found other doctors that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just comes down to the individual a little bit, but it's also like it's low-hanging fruit, so it's something that we can make fun of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You think it should be good because it's military, but that's just not how things go in the military. Mil-spec isn't necessarily a great thing. Yeah. I think it is going to be very interesting when these Abrams manned battle tanks get to Ukraine, because they're talking about like 6 months for them to get over there, right? So that's a long push. That tells me that that they're working on them. They're either part swapping or
they're in dermo right now, and they're trying to get them running. Oh god.
Or they're taking stuff out of them that they don't want the Russians to end up with their hands on. Changing out armor or tech,
right?
Because there's a very real chance that if they do end up seeing the battlefield, that it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And we don't want the Russians to necessarily know the ins and outs of the Abrams, because we're still using them. But gosh, I trained for almost 2 years before I ever operated a tank inside the fleet. And my first day in the fleet, after all that training, I felt like a child trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. I was so lost. And I had this platoon sergeant who was kind of abusive. He hated officers. He just wanted to retire. The guy was a dick, and I was humble. I just needed help, and he was one of the throw you to the wolves kind of guys. And I'm not going to back down from that, but it also wasn't a great start to how you look in front of your platoon and shit like that. It was definitely setting me up for failure. The point that I'm trying to make is I think it's going to be really interesting when these tanks get over there. Who knows what the war is going to look like at that point. And then to train these dudes up, train up Ukrainians, put them inside of a new vehicle and expect them to be able to operate in, really serious conventional warfare against other tanks. It's a big ask.
Yeah.
We averaged 10 hours of maintenance for every hour of use. Sometimes it was a lot higher than that.
How does that compare to fighter jets as far as hours versus use?
I would think that it's similar.
Mm.
I didn't know any mechanics that worked on airplanes because the air wing of the Marine Corps is different from ground forces, and they have their own bases or sections within a base. So I really didn't interact with those guys very much. So the guys that I talked to were pilots, and they were, largely, I don't know if this is even fair, but it seemed like they were largely unaware of what it took to make sure that their aircraft was functional. And there's lots of jokes about pilots taking credit for everything that goes right and then blaming the mechanics for everything that's broken. But I imagine that there was a huge amount of maintenance. I do know that it was normal for, a large percentage, not a majority, but still a very significant percentage of any aircraft fleet to be not working at any given time. And tanks was similar. We would expect 10 to 20% of our fleet to be not functional at any given time. But what's that like? What's the maintenance cycle like for you guys?
Well,
Like, do your rigs pretty much work, or is it just a constant problem because you're using them so much and so hard?
well, they do now, mainly because we have a sergeant who is all over that stuff at the moment. He gets so excited about vehicle maintenance, it's unbelievable. He wants our rigs to be detailed once a year now, and it's like, well, we work in Wallowa County. That's a big job and that's a big ask for anybody to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I do a pretty good job, but trying to keep mine clean. But yeah, you just get a lot of mud and grime and everything else inside, outside your rig, and we try to get them in every 5,000, especially the new ones we have, every 5,000 for all your stuff. And I'm sure that he's taken over that whole thing now. We'll be in there for everything right on the money for tranny and whatever else needs to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to keep them running. You've got to keep them in good order because you, as we all know around here, I mean, you might be out in the middle of nowhere and trying to get somebody some help, and if your rig fails, there's a long period of time before somebody's coming behind you. So you kind of owe it to the community to keep your stuff up and running good. And I certainly appreciate what he's been doing with that.
Yeah. No, good on him. I'm sure, Lyle, you're in the same boat, but like, there's a constant fear that I have that a rig is going to leave me stranded someplace out here, because the consequences of that are massive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to have a relaxing weekend, take the kids to Anthony Lakes, and you got, 3 kids, and weather's definitely not your friend this time of year. And all it could take is a bad battery, and you leave a little late from the ski run, and there you sit with 3 kids, and So you gotta hope your stuff's running right for sure.
Or worse, get out in the hills someplace and it snows a little bit.
Yeah.
Could have the wrong tires on and be like, no, it wasn't snowing when I left. Like,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Aren't these glasses cool, Paul? You look inside this
I'm
thing?
digging them, man.
So I like your guys' Hawaiian shirts, which brought up a question of mine.
Oh.
If you travel to Hawaii, because I've never been, can you laugh out loud, or is it just a low ha?
Nice. Nice. That was a solid entry into that one.
It depends if you're trying to go out and look for some up dog or not.
No.
God, it worked so well.
You can't do that 4 parties in a row.
It's still getting people.
It's dusty.
I don't.
That is a dusty joke.
I'm gonna keep it going, just so you know. You can plan on it through the rest of this year.
I think the best thing to do with something like that, if it fails, is just to start explaining why it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I got Krista so good though.
That's not fair.
Right after I got Montana. It was just so funny to hear Krista say, "What's up, dog?"
Yeah.
It's the only time that'll ever come out of her mouth.
And I'm sure she was, lilting and positive.
She was not
with it.
impressed at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of Hawaiian shirt, What brand are you going with right now? What's your go-to? We had this talk a while back, but just so the folks know.
I like the OEF Nation ones. Those are pretty great. My mom brought this back from Mexico. So this is a Mexican Hawaiian shirt.
Oh.
But this looks pretty Magnum PI, don't you think?
Yeah, I
Oh,
dig
yeah.
it, dude.
Yeah.
Super lightweight.
Yeah.
Magnum PI style. For
Yeah.
Sure.
It's got the colorful flowers on it.
No guns, though.
No,
It's a letdown.
it is. No guns, no bombs, no helicopters. But that's the rest of my shirts, so it's fine. It was a funny thing here growing up. There's a legendary ranching family, the McLarens. They've been here a long time, just like my family has, and like a lot of families. Scott McLaren would wear Hawaiian shirts at events, and I thought that was so funny, like such a funny thing to do, because everybody else was always cowboyed up. They'd be wearing their actual working clothes if they were out cowboying, and then they had like town cowboy clothes for events. But Scott would wear Hawaiian shirts both working and in town if he could get away with it.
Nice.
And he's such a laid-back guy, and I thought this is the goal right here. Like this is what you need to achieve, is like enough comfort with everything in your situation that you can wear the Hawaiian shirt. I feel like I'm getting there.
Dude, anymore, if I don't have a T-shirt on, I have a Hawaiian shirt on. You just can't lose.
They're pretty comfortable.
You can't lose.
Yeah.
Golf, going to the store,
Mhm.
going out for dinner,
Going to the range.
going to the range.
Great range shirt.
Yep.
Fishing.
Haven't done that yet.
You haven't fished in a Hawaiian shirt?
No, I'll give it a shot, though, this year.
Really?
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. Retro rifle.
Yeah, that's your brand.
That's my brand.
Too skinny for me, buddy. And they're always out. They're always out of everything because they're a popular brand, but people buy that stuff up immediately.
Well, they advertise really well, too. And they got me at least 10 times now. So.
You're on the email list?
Yeah, they're not cheap. They fit me pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So it's a good conversation piece, right?
Savage Tacticians, I think.
They're pretty damn good.
That's the other one that I've bought some from.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think my favorite, though, is the Bangarang one, because that's just so hilarious that they turned, this like Peter Pan pseudo villain into a skull and put it on a Hawaiian shirt.
I am unfamiliar.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. I'll show
check
you.
it out later.
It's in the closet.
Copy.
I'm not an insignia fan. This is pushing it for me.
I noticed that.
I'm a plain.
I thought that was a bit bold for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you pick those threads up from Kevin?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you leave them at your house?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I had no choice.
Yeah. Perfect.
But I do love it. I don't think I've taken it off since he gave it to me. I'm afraid to tell you how long ago that was.
Yeah, I rolled into some clean Carhartts today. They're not actually clean, but they've been washed. You know how that goes with Carhartts. But the other ones I was rocking, they're enough days in that they're starting to develop a personality.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed I don't know if it was your last one, but one of your recent ones with Greg when he flipped the script on you.
Oh, man.
That was a good podcast, man.
Greg's such a freaking outstanding human.
I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed my time out hunting with him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Just walking around with that guy in the woods, the stuff that maybe he's picking up on that you've been walking by your whole life, I mean, being a government trapper.
Yeah.
It's probably the ultimate teacher out there.
Sure.
I mean, really. But I absolutely loved hanging out with him this last year when we were going after some cows.
Yeah. He's quite a woodsman.
Yeah.
Were you guys, when you hung out with them,
Mhm.
what were you doing?
We were cow hunting,
Or were you archery hunting?
rifle.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
Have you ever archery hunted blindfolded?
No.
Whoa.
You don't know what you're missing.
These setups, dude.
Lyle Witherrite.
I'm defenseless.
I've got nothing.
But the neat thing about that spot where we were hunting out there is that it's so easy to get around in, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you got canyons on all sides, and then it's this top, and kind of a plateau. And a plateau really is the highest form of flattery.
God. The folks at home can see James's face right now. See how happy he is.
Did you do your homework?
No. I don't have anything. Terrible at jokes. I'm a one-trick pony, dude.
It's just up dog?
It's up dog.
Oh, man. Well, that's all right.
You get what you get.
Been smoking ribs old school all day.
I was so happy to see that. I thought you were running the Traeger.
Yeah.
And
I am running the Traeger right. So the Traeger's got duck jerky in it right now.
oh, sweet, yeah.
But man, the pit is a skill, especially on a cold, windy day. Like if you can keep a pit at between 225 and 275 all day when it's blowing snow, then you can freaking take on the world.
Yeah, is it messing with your temperature when it's blowing in the bottom of it there? Is it raising the temperature like?
So you've got like 3 levers to pull, and I'm not a pit master,
Mm-hmm.
so let me start with that. But I used this thing a lot when I lived in North Carolina, and then a little bit once I got back here. But almost everything I do is on the Traeger. But the reason that I've kept this pit around is because it's a great cooking surface if you don't have electricity, because you can still bake with it. You can roast. You can smoke stuff. It's a large surface. I can fit half of a hog in there. But you've got a little gate down in the firebox that you can open and close to let more air in, and then you've got another gate on the chimney to let more air ventilate through, and then how much charcoal you put on it. And as far as I know, those are the levers that you can pull for maintaining heat and temperature, and it's kind of a trick.
Yeah, I use mine like once a year, and you definitely have to be home.
Yeah.
There's no going to the store for a while.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out your temps. I mean, the wind, like you said, the wind starts blowing a little bit.
Yeah,
it starts
it's going to
introducing
draw
rocks.
harder.
Yep.
It's going to.
Yeah.
Or you start dropping in ambient temperature. All of a sudden, your whole barrel's colder.
That's what's really tough.
Yeah.
Because that barrel's huge. It's a big space. I don't know. But I was really happy to do it. And, it's a risk. I'm cooking five racks of ribs. We got a bunch of people coming over this evening for ribbage night.
Sweet.
Oh,
yeah, ribs and
nice.
cribbage. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah.
Ribbage.
That was pretty close. Yeah,
Little-
I love it.
Yeah,
Cribbage
pulled that
tournament.
Over under, who do you got taking it tonight?
Well, I don't know. It's going to depend on the cards, right? You can get speed bagged on the cards.
Yeah.
But also, we're going to run an actual bracket, single elimination tournament on a bracket.
Ooh-wee.
And we're going to be drawing for our slots. And you come up against Kirk Skovlin right out of the gates.
Yeah.
If he's having a good day, you're in trouble.
You are in trouble.
So Fletcher's got the bug, and he obviously needs a little coaching, and I'm not the cribbage master. But I told him if he gets in on the first bracket, he may be like, that may be a good spot. He can get in, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
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 Because I want to get him hooked. He already likes it. And I think it's a smart game to play.
It's good for your brain,
Yeah.
man. What's really going to be funny tonight is everybody that's coming is all friends and family, right? And friends who are close enough that it's almost hard to say whether they're friends or family.
Mm.
Everybody loves each other, but we're all pretty competitive humans.
You don't say.
Like, everybody is undercover, extremely competitive. Who's going to be here tonight? It's going to be awesome.
Do you got a Grant Jackson coming into town tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, G Monster is inbound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does Grant play cribbage?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Heidi's
Nice.
like serious about it, right?
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, Grant's pretty damn good at cribbage, too.
It's going to be a problem, especially if he's wearing his glasses.
I think he's on call tonight, too, so he can't even get a little tuned up.
He's got to
So he might be kicking our butts.
come in straight. Huh. That's a problem.
That's all right. We'll take him down.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't get the cards. You can play the best crib game out there, and if you don't get the cards, you don't win.
Yeah.
But no, going to be fun. Let's do it work.
Trying to figure out how to do it again. So like my first day back when I
Yeah.
put all my stuff on again.
Is it that perishable?
No, just more than anything, just wearing all that stuff around.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I've been hauling this around for 14 and a half years. And, you know, you go to put it on once after being off for 3 months, and it's just kind of a weird deal.
Yeah.
You gain, I don't know how much, 30 or so pounds right away. And
Right.
been pretty busy.
God dang, is that how much you pack
I
around?
think so. And
I'm pretty sure I could outrun you on a good day then.
now.
If you're wearing 30 pounds. I mean, that's going to slow you down.
Yeah.
I'm not outrunning anybody.
In high school, we got in trouble. We got caught. We didn't actually get caught that night, but we got in trouble for egging our English teacher's house on Halloween, and we were so confused at how she caught us.
Couldn't even afford to do that now.
Right, yeah, it was right, $7 a dozen.
10.
Yeah, 10?
10.
Good grief.
Yeah. It's
So-
almost a buck and egg.
We were trying to figure out how she caught us, and she goes, listen, you idiots sit in my class all day. You're the only ones that wear Vibram sole shoes. Like, damn. Didn't think of that, did we?
Yeah.
What happened? What was the result?
The result was that a really special lady in my life, Carla Eschler, said, listen, let's make them eat crow. They need to apologize, do a little work here and there, but these boys are signed up for the military. You don't want to mess that up. Like, let's get them out of here because it was our senior year.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we were going to get burned at the stake, I think, but because it was the fourth year we'd done it in a row.
Paul, can you hand me that McKellen 12 up there?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you to Major William Mahone VI for getting me that bottle. This is a heck of a good scotch.
The sixth.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and
That's
I think
dedication to name.
and I think that they're all military officers too.
Wow.
Or close to it. When we were at the basic school, we were studying the Civil War and some of those engagements. And there was I think it was a Captain Mahone, and his name came up again. It was Captain Will Mahone, and I was sitting right next to him. You know, we're alphabetically, we're right there, and I was like, "Is that kin of yours?" And he said, "Oh yeah."
Wow.
And then he had a son too, so he's got Will Mahone the seventh on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So did you pick up a lot of knowledge on Civil War and in all sorts of engagements in your basic?
A little bit. So the basic school for us is 6 months long, and because Quantico is sort of in the epicenter of a lot of those battles, it was easy to go visit battle sites.
Oh yeah, wow.
And the one that I remember the most, and I think I've talked about it on the show before, but it was the Battle of Chancellorsville. And it was, if I remember right, a 26 mile hump, march, ruck, pick your word, hike. And on almost every hump that we did, we had people fall out. 5%, 10% would fall out at some point. They'd quit. And this deal we did is like an interpretive, as an interpretive hump. So at every station, at every stopping point, a different lieutenant would step up to talk about like what was going on, like some different aspect of the battlefield. And what we were doing was taking this route that I think it was General Stonewall Jackson, took to flank General Joseph Hooker. And they left at night in the evening so that the South could see them leave. And they left as if they were retreating. So the rebels, rested easy that night. They thought that they'd won the day through maneuver. And then they made this big flanking maneuver around and hit him right at first light. And they fought all day long. And Jackson ended up getting shot during that engagement and died a couple weeks later. They think that he was probably already dying of pneumonia or tuberculosis, something like that. But the order was that anybody that dropped out of that march when they were doing their flanking maneuver was to be bayoneted. So you can quit if you want, but quitting is permanent. We're going to stab you with the pointy end of a rifle to death if you fall out of this march. And think about like how hard they'd been fighting, the gear that they had, the boots that they may or may not have had.
Stuff, yeah.
You know, not having the right kind of food.
What time of year was it too? You know,
extreme battle fatigue. I don't know that.
Yeah. And so you guys mocked their. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
But you mocked their path.
Yep.
Like similar time of day, or
I don't know. No, we did it during the day.
God,
we did
that
it
had
during
to
the
be
day, but they did it
powerful.
at night. And it was. It's like you're walking in the footsteps of a really decisive victory.
Wow.
That changed everything. You know, it changed the whole shape of the country.
Yeah.
And so many of those Civil War battles were like that. If one of them had gone differently, that changes everything. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. And for a kid that grows up out here in Oregon, where the Civil War is like, you know, something you learn about in school,
yeah, it's a fairy tale
a little
almost,
bit.
and when you're that young,
right? And then to go back and like look at the field, and if you look at that, you can see those canvas tents out there. You can see the steam coming across and the fog and the smoke. You can hear it. You can feel it. You know, there's bullets everywhere. There are still bullets everywhere.
Yeah.
You look at those cricks and stuff, and you just find bullets.
So I'm just now
incredible fighting.
I'm just now getting fascinated with learning about history, and I'm in a Civil War swing right now. And now I have like, you know, people in my life like, oh, let's go visit, Brazil or whatever, and I'm like, let's go visit Gettysburg. Let's go visit something that is palpable to me. Like I want to stand where they stood. I want to see what they saw. That seems like a powerful deal.
We had a really splendid leader at 2nd Tanks for a little while, named Lieutenant Colonel John Lauder. And if ever there was going to be a tank officer who became a general, it was going to be him. He'd been an aide to the commandant previously. He could remember the names of almost everybody in the battalion, which was over 1,000 men. But not only their names, but he would remember like where they're from, the names of their kids or their spouse, what sport team they rooted for. And it wasn't just because he had an incredible memory. After he talked to everybody, which is how he spent his days, was going around and talking to Marines, he would take notes. And then at night, him and his wife would quiz through those they were flashcards.
Wow.
Because it was so important to him that he know his Marines.
Yeah.
What an incredible thing. And know your Marines and look out for their welfare is one of the leadership principles in the Marine Corps. And easier said than done, especially when you get to that level. But not long after he became the commanding officer of 2nd Tanks, he took every officer at Tanks to Gettysburg on a field trip.
Wow.
To do a case study and to think about the battlements, and then also to scale it up and be like, okay, if this was larger scaled and this was a tank battle, how would it go down? I did not get to go. I was the officer that got to stay behind to be officer of the day, and you know there always has to be somebody to hold down the fort. But he was an incredible guy, and I had just a massive amount of respect for him. There's another really interesting thing that he did, and this still cracks me up to this day. He'd taken over not long before I deployed. And the plan was to draw down the Marine Corps a lot at that time. And they were going to go from taking about 70% of officers, we're going to be able to continue and promote to 30%. So massive, massive cuts. And they're calling it career designation. If you were to make it from first lieutenant to captain, you really needed to be career designated if you were going to stay in. And that meant that you sort of had tenure, you had the ticket, you're going to be able to stay in the Marine Corps for a career if you did your job right and felt like continuing. My plan was always to come home, to do my initial contract and then to come back here to the ranch. And then, I deployed, and it was right after the first time that I was wounded. I'd gotten out of the hospital and I was back. Leading my platoon again when that time came up for me to submit my package for career designation. And I submitted a letter requesting to not be considered because there was people that wanted it more. And one of the just funniest things is what came back was that I got career designated, and there's guys that desperately wanted it that didn't get it, right? And I talked to Colonel Lauder about it later on, and he's like, look, the way I was seeing it, you're in combat, like you'd just gotten hurt, you just lost a Marine, some of your other Marines had just been hurt. Like you're in a weird place, but you're still doing your job at the level that I expected, which is not for him to say good job. It's like you're meeting my expectations. Like you're getting a C, and that was good enough for him to go to that career designation board and tell them to disregard my letter to not be considered. But what an incredible guy. He could ask me for anything after that and I would do it. And even just knowing the troops' names was enough that like they would break themselves for anything that he needed. It's an important thing.
He wanted to push you.
Yeah. And we talked about a couple weeks ago on the Smoke Jumper episode, we were talking about the Man Gulch fire. And one of the primary reasons that Dodge's men didn't listen to him when he said, get into this fire that I just lit to save your lives, was because he didn't know them. He didn't know their names. He was really aloof as a leader. He didn't have any kind of rapport with them. And they stopped for a second as he's bending over, lighting the ground on fire, saying, hey, jump into these flames and you'll be okay. And one of them said, to hell with that, and they took off, and every one of those guys burned to death in the next couple minutes. So knowing the people that work for you, this is what I want people to get out of this overly long story. You have to know the people that work for you. You have to know what their motives are. You have to know about their personal lives. You have to be involved with them. And if you're not, then during an emergency, they might not care to pay attention to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you don't care about me,
yeah,
it's hard. Like, even if you don't care about your subordinates, if you sound like you care, it makes a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like, everybody wants to be noticed. Everybody wants to matter.
Who's the greatest leader that you encountered when you were in the Navy?
Ed Bruner.
Tell me about him.
He was my senior chief, and he pretty much just, the term was Sea Daddy. He just took me under his wing. And I messed up a lot when I was in because I was that age or whatever and super defiant. But he saw something in me, and every time he stood up for me, it just made me work 10 times harder for him. And if I could track him down, I would thank him for, saving my ass, because I try to get myself in self-destructive trouble all the time, and he, he'd take me aside and kind of slap me around, like, dude, I know you're better than this, like, and so just him as a senior chief, taking time out of his day to give a damn about me, made a huge difference.
Yeah.
As far as military goes, it'd be Ed Bruner for sure.
Paul? Best leader you've run into in the anywhere in law enforcement.
It's interesting because from the day I was born into a law enforcement family.
Right. Your dad's a legend.
Yeah, he is, and people don't let me forget it either. It's a lot of some big shoes to fill there. But growing up and watching him as a sergeant, then a lieutenant, then a police chief over the course of a 30-year career, and having people come up to me saying they wish they could work for my dad. I'm biased, of course, so I would say my dad.
Yeah. That's who comes to mind for me.
It's totally different, though. So you think you have a grasp on what the job is because you've grown up around it as a kid. And then all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat, and one day you get kicked out on your own.
Yeah.
And you're looking for leadership. When I was still on the res, Tim Adelman, he came over from Washington County, retired over there, and came back to Eastern Oregon. He worked. He's still there as a police chief. He runs a number of people, and he was really good to me. He saw my strengths and weaknesses, and he would assign me to these trainings, places across the country, to develop those strengths and work on those weaknesses. I still call him chief, and then here, man, I've been pretty dang lucky lately to have who I've had. There's one guy that reminds me of my dad quite a bit, and he's my current undersheriff, and his name is Billy Wells, and he's another transplant from the west side, but
barf.
Yeah, I know.
Gross.
But
Sounds disgusting.
He's a great guy, man, and
he is a good guy.
Yeah, I look up to Billy a lot, and
it's
of course,
just a shame.
Of course, Joel and Ryan. Now you don't know Ryan, but maybe you know Ryan, but
I don't think I do.
Yeah, he's he did 30 years, and he came back to work to help out us, and actually bought Mom and Dad's house when they moved to Montana not too long ago.
One of the things that has surprised me about myself, Paul, is that the older I get, the more law-abiding I become. And I thought it would go the other way.
Okay.
I thought I would just get worse. Because a lot of trouble goes like that. You start out small scale and you just find bigger and bigger trouble as you go. But I've gone the other way. So I'm happy to not know all of your colleagues.
Yeah, and some people really go the other way.
Sure, yeah.
It's pretty amazing. But
another leader that I've got to point out is Matt Dowden. I don't think I've ever talked about him to you guys, but he was a captain. He was our company commander when I was deployed, and I didn't always get along with Matt, which is normal enough, right? Like, you're not always going to get along with your boss. But he'd been on a tank deployment to Iraq, and now he'd come back. He was a real studious guy. He's from the South, from Louisiana. His family grows pecans. They still do. And there was a time when we were coming back from a mission that was really long and really tough, that we were going through this pass, and it was a bunch of vehicles. It was every tank in the company. It was a bunch of trucks. It was a bunch of support vehicles and support trucks and attachments. This convoy line that was, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles long, maybe. And I've got a picture of Matt sitting in his tank in this little pass that's farther up, watching this whole procession go by. And we'd been awake for like 70 hours at this point. And that guy was still alert, and he was watching everybody come through. And then a dude pops up out of this Carez hole, this hole in the ground, tries to shoot me with an RPG. And my tank was getting towed by the recovery vehicle that was in my platoon. So my tank was busted. The turret couldn't turn. It was hosed. So we've got 2 vehicles tied to each other. This dude tries to pop up out of a Carez hole. I see him. I see this RPG starting to come up. I snapped up my rifle, fired, hit him in the neck, and killed him. And my gun also jammed. It was an M4, but The civilian variant is an AR. They don't do well in dusty environments. They really don't. And a tank is a dusty environment.
Right.
So I was fortunate and lucky to make that shot count. And Matt was able to really command the column at that point and was doing a good job of keeping everybody moving. And then one of the vehicles in the front hits an IED in this pass, blows up. Got another picture of this. And, the dust and smoke column is going 1,000 feet into the sky. It's incredible. It's like, holy shit. Who do I know that just died? And radio communication when you're getting IED strikes is pretty sparse. So if somebody can talk, the day before I had hit an IED, and my radio communication went like this. 6 was Dowden, so he's the company commander. My platoon was white platoon, and I was the 1 tank, so I was white 1 actual. So I hit this IED. I've got a bunch of Aussies on top of my tank. I think I had a dog on there at the time. I'm up out of the top of the turret, hit this IED. But we're all okay. So I grabbed the radio, and I said, 6, white 1 actual, contact IED out. That's it. That's communication if your radio still works and you still work. And until you can get things sorted out, that's all you need to say. And, right after that it was 6, white 1 actual, contact troops left out. A lot going on. Don't have time to explain. I'll get back to you. So we see this big column from this IED, and you kind of feel the shockwave ripple out across the desert there. You're like, oh shit, what just happened? And then the column needs to keep moving, right? Because we just had an RPG dude try and kill us at the back end of the column. We just had an IED strike at the front end of the column. Obviously, they're trying to get us boxed in right here, and then that a big strike is going to come in, and you've got 2 long exposed flanks because you're a column moving through the desert. This is the recipe for a bad situation. But this dude's dead. We're going to go ahead and bypass, this blown up truck. I didn't know it was a truck at the time. So, and it might have been a tank. I can't remember. So we start to bypass, and Dowden's doing a good job of keeping everybody moving. This is an extremely stressful and dynamic situation. We even had a first sergeant who started to hallucinate, and he ordered one of his gunners to fire something that didn't exist. Right?
Wow.
That's the level of stress that was occurring. Because this first sergeant, who was from downtown somewhere, I think Baltimore, he calls out that he sees a guy shooting at them wearing a tracksuit. Not in Afghanistan, bro. But in his mind, I'm sure that's what he was saying. So we start to bypass secondary ID. Another one blows up. Dowden comes off the hill in his tank and is driving straight into this literal minefield to get these guys out of their vehicles, get them on top of his tank. Right as I'm coming past, and he drives over a third one. And all that blast came straight out from underneath his tank and straight into me. And that was the biggest part of the reason for the second time that I ended up in the hospital. But just the guts to do something like that, for him to be like, oh, my dudes are super in trouble. I'm going to go get them. And I know exactly what I'm going into, and I'm going to do it anyways. That type of leadership, that type of courage just doesn't exist elsewhere. I have never seen it elsewhere.
Recently, leadership means a lot more to me than it used to.
Yeah.
I think that people, it doesn't matter. I mean, the story you're telling, or if it's the private sector, or law enforcement, fire service, whatever, smoke jumpers.
Yeah.
People are looking for it. And going back to your story about that leader, getting to know all of his people, I think that's the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
Someday I think I'm going to be there, and it's going to be very important for me to figure out what it is that makes somebody tick and what they respond to and what they're scared of and what they're good at and what they're not good at. And those, I think if you want to be an effective leader, you've got to take the time to do that because your people will notice it.
Sure.
Because we've all had those people over the top of us that didn't take the time to do that.
Yeah.
And it's palpable.
Yeah. And it's hard not to do just like enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And to add one level to that, also, just like what it boils down to is standing up for, taking a bullet for, quote unquote, the people that are under you, that look up to you, that you lead. Like it could be as simple. It can start with as simple as a bug as, for example, my son went to the hardware store and came back with what I absolutely didn't ask him to bring back. And he was telling me the story, and he was a little upset. And
was it a girl?
What's that?
Did he bring back a girl?
No, he brought back an inner tube that for his bicycle that didn't But the takeaway for him and what I hope the bug was that I picked up something that it wasn't his fault, and then I asked, well, what happened when you walked in there? Did anybody help you find the thing you were looking for? Oh no, they just pointed and at that point I just dropped everything I was doing, went to the hardware store, and was pissed off. So what I'm hoping it all boils down to is that when you're in need, that key person steps in the way of whatever is causing a problem, and then that's what creates these kind of people that do this kind of thing is God, I don't know exactly where I'm going, but a good leader, it starts with something small as like your friend standing up for you or your dad standing up for you or something small, and it just grows. Like it's grown into me. I can't stand to see somebody who's being harmed or whatever. It's just like I don't have a choice anymore. It's grown to be a monster now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. You deal with like all this chaos and stuff and come back and just enjoy simplicities at home. And it tends to make it all better. I've been doing a funny thing for the last couple of years, which is every night before I go to bed, I bust out a pair of thermals and I count mice. And I'm developing some interesting theories because I've got enough data now to support it. But we're coming off of a new moon right now, so it's been really dark. And the darker the night, the more mice are out.
Huh.
If it's a full moon, you're going to see 0 mice. But if it's a dark sky, there's nothing but stars. You can look up and see all the constellations. You can see Orion's belt, which is just a huge waste of space.
God, dude, it just freaking ends. You're so happy right now.
It's a good one, man.
It's pretty good.
It's true about the mice, though. Humans are visual things, and we would think, well, if it's a full moon and it's bright, that's when everything's going to be out. But that's just not the case.
Oh, predators can see too.
All the prey are vulnerable to predators, and all predators hunt visually. For the most part, they hunt visually. So yeah.
And I've been reading like this, if the moon's out, predators are out, just darkness. It seems like, kind of. And I've been reading this horror book, which I never do. And
oh God,
and
I can't read horror at all.
Yeah, well,
it's so much scarier than watching it.
I'm reading it in Braille, and I can't. Something bad's going to happen because I could just feel it.
That was poor execution.
I thought it was pretty good.
Where did you get lost in that one? That wasn't the plan.
I knew it was. Yeah, I did get lost in the middle, but I had to try.
I thought it was great.
That's better than Up Dog.
Oh.
And that's
goodness.
my 3.
Yeah. Good job. Nice execution.
I'll be better prepared next time.
Okay. All right. I was concerned, and my concerns were validated. So yeah,
100%.
I expect more.
Oh, I've been getting some just like annoyed blank stares from the kids because I've been trying this shit out all weekend on them. Oh,
you've
yeah.
been testing them out a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, some jokes land flat. That's just how it is. It's like the guy that invented zero. Thanks for nothing.
Where's my scotch? Let's see some of that, Captain.
Here you go, buddy.
Thanks, doggy.
Yeah. I'll have some of that on Major William Mahone.
Well, thank you, Major.
Well, gentlemen, I'm excited for ribbage night. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thank you.
And I apologize in advance for the absolute beating that I'm about to put on both of you.
Good luck. I'm coming. I told you good and early. You'll behave yourself, James. I'm coming.
Nice. All right. Thanks, fellas.
All right.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.